July 2013, a hot, sticky afternoon in Miami. The kind of day where the air feels heavy and nobody wants to step outside unless they have to. Inside a quiet apartment, something happened that would soon shake social media users across the country. But nobody outside that apartment knew it yet. Not until a post appeared on Facebook that made people stop scrolling and stare. A normal day until it wasn't. At around 11 a.m., friends scrolling through their feeds noticed something strange. A photo, posted by Derek Medina. It wasn't a meme, not a selfie, not some random life update. It was something nobody expected to see online, especially not from someone they knew. Under the image, a caption read, "I'm going to prison or death sentence for killing my wife. Love you guys, miss you guys. Take care, Facebook people." At first, people thought it was a sick joke. Someone commented, "Bro, this ain't funny. Delete this." Another wrote, "Yo, Derek, what the heck is this? Tell me this fake." But the post stayed up. Minutes turned into hours, and soon the reality hit hard. This wasn't fake. This was real. Who was Derek Medina? To neighbors, Derek Medina didn't look like a monster. He looked like any other guy trying to get his life together. Medium height, quiet, kept mostly to himself. But beneath that calm exterior was a man obsessed with control and image. He loved social media, loved posting advice, loved acting like he had life figured out. He even wrote an e-book about relationships, giving advice about respect and discipline in marriage. Yeah, the irony wasn't lost on investigators later. Friends remembered him saying stuff like, "Man, social media is power. You control the story. You control what people think." At the time, nobody thought much about it. Now, those words sounded different. Enter Jennifer Alfonso. His wife, Jennifer, was younger than him. Friends described her as lively, independent, not someone who liked being told what to do. That alone caused friction. The coupled relationship wasn't smooth, not even close. They argued a lot. Neighbors in their apartment building in Miami had heard shouting more than once, doors slamming, voices rising. But in busy apartment life, noise was unusual. People ignored it, until it became impossible to ignore. The marriage that was already cracking. Jennifer wasn't the quiet type. If she disagreed, she said it straight, no sugarcoating. One night, according to court testimony, their argument turned heated. Derek paced across the living room, fists clenched. Jennifer stood near the doorway, arms crossed. "You don't control me," she snapped. Derek shook his head slowly. "I'm trying to help you. You don't listen." Jennifer scoffed. "Help? You mean boss me around?" Silence filled the room for a second. Heavy silence. The kind that feels like thunder before rain. Derek leaned forward slightly. "You disrespect me in my own house." Jennifer rolled her eyes. "Respect ain't forced. You earn it." That line stuck with him. Neighbors later said arguments like this weren't routine. They were routine, a man obsessed with control. Derek believed in strict rules. In his mind, relationships needed discipline, structure, authority. Once he told a friend over coffee, "Women today, they don't respect boundaries. That's the problem." The friend laughed awkwardly. "Man, you sound like some old-school preacher." Derek didn't laugh. He stayed serious. "I'm just saying, there gotta be order." Those words would later be repeated in court because they showed something important. This wasn't just anger, it was control. Social media, his favorite stage. Derek didn't just use Facebook to chat, he used it like a stage, a place to build an image. Strong husband, wise man, relationship expert. He posted motivational quotes, advice about discipline, messages about respect. People online saw confidence, but behind closed doors, reality looked very different. Jennifer reportedly told a friend, "He acts perfect online, but at home, whole different story." That difference between public image and private chaos became a key detail later. The final argument begins. On July 25, 2013, the day everything changed, tension filled their apartment. Jennifer had returned home. Another disagreement started. Nobody outside knew what sparked it, but voices grew louder.
Walls in apartment buildings are thin. Neighbors later recalled hearing shouting, not unusual, but louder than usual. Inside the living room, the argument escalated fast. Jennifer pointed toward the hallway. "I'm done arguing with you." Derek followed her, voice raised. "You walk away every time." Jennifer turned sharply. "Because you don't listen." He clenched his jaw. She moved toward another room, trying to end it, trying to cool things down, but Derek wasn't ready to stop. A decision that changed everything. Moments later, something shifted. The argument crossed a line, a dangerous one. Investigators later said this was the moment when anger turned to action, the kind of moment that lasts seconds but destroys lives forever. What happened next would turn a private argument into a national headline and would soon flood Facebook timelines across the country, not for jokes, not for selfies, but for fear. Meanwhile, online, while all this tension was building inside that apartment, the outside world kept moving. People checked notifications, liked posts, shared memes, normal life. Nobody knew that soon, very soon, they would witness one of the most disturbing social media moments ever recorded. Because what Derek Medina did next didn't end inside the apartment. He carried it online for the world to see.
The apartment felt tight, like the air itself had turned heavy. Voices echoed off the walls, louder now, sharper than before. This wasn't just another argument. This one felt different. Dangerous. The argument turns physical. Jennifer walked toward the kitchen, trying to create distance. She had done this before, stepping away when things got heated. But this time, Derek followed right behind her, fast, aggressive. "You think you can just ignore me?" Derek snapped. Jennifer turned, frustration all over her face. "I ain't ignoring you. I'm tired of this, man. Every single day, same fight." Derek's breathing got heavier. His fists tightened. Neighbors later told police they heard loud banging noises, like objects being pushed or knocked aside. Inside the apartment, tension was boiling over. Jennifer grabbed her phone as if ready to call someone. That move made Derek even more furious. "Who you calling?" Jennifer shot back. "Nobody yet, but I will if you don't back off." Those words hit him like gasoline on fire. A dangerous turn. According to later testimony, Jennifer moved quickly toward another room. She wanted distance, space, maybe safety. But Derek didn't calm down. Instead, he walked into the bedroom, and that decision changed everything. Inside the bedroom, he reached for something, a firearm. That moment lasted seconds, but it sealed their fate. Silence, then chaos. Back in the living area, Jennifer heard movement. She turned toward the hallway. Confusion flashed across her face. Then fear. "Derek, what are you doing?" she asked. He didn't answer, not at first. He stepped forward, slow, focused. The tension in the room was unbearable. Jennifer's voice shook now. "Put that down, Derek. This ain't funny." Neighbors later described hearing sharp, sudden sounds that cut through the building. Everything went quiet after that. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes people nervous. But nobody called police immediately because nobody fully understood what had just happened. Not yet. The aftermath inside the apartment. Inside the apartment, time seemed to freeze. The argument was over, but not because anyone walked away, because something irreversible had happened. Derek stood still, breathing heavily. The room around him silent, still, cold. Instead of running, instead of calling for help, he did something nobody expected. Something that would shock the entire internet. The unthinkable decision. Most people in panic call emergency services, or run, or freeze. But Derek made a different choice. He reached for his phone, opened Facebook. Hands still shaking, he began typing. Slow at first, then faster. The message was short, cold, direct. "I'm going to prison or death sentence for killing my wife. Love you guys. Miss you guys. Take care, Facebook people." Then he uploaded a photo and pressed post. Just like that, with a single tap, a private crime became public. The internet reacts.
At first, people scrolling through Facebook thought it was fake. Some thought it was a prank. Others assumed it was photoshopped. Friends flooded the comments. "Yo, Derek, delete this right now. Man, this ain't funny. What's wrong with you? Tell me this fake, bro." But the post stayed. No deletion, no explanation, just silence from Derek's account. That silence made things worse, way worse, because now fear replaced confusion. The first call to police. One of Derek's Facebook contacts didn't laugh, didn't joke, didn't scroll past. They picked up their phone and dialed 911, voice shaking. I think someone just posted something terrible online." The dispatcher listened carefully, took notes, asked for details, name, location, account information. Within minutes, officers in Miami were alerted. Something serious had happened. They just didn't know how serious yet. Police rushed to the scene. Sirens broke the afternoon silence. Police cars sped through the streets, lights flashing. Officers arrived outside the apartment building. Residents watched from balconies and hallways, confused, curious, worried. An officer knocked hard on the apartment door. No answer. Another knock. Still nothing. Then movement inside. The door opened, and there stood Derek Medina, calm, almost too calm. Officers immediately noticed something wrong, very wrong. The arrest. Police ordered him to step outside, hands visible, no sudden movements. Derek didn't resist, didn't run, didn't argue. He simply walked out. One officer asked sharply, "Is your wife inside?" Derek nodded slowly. "Yeah, she's inside." Another officer entered the apartment. Moments later, the reality became clear. The situation was exactly what the Facebook post suggested. Not a prank, not a joke, not a hoax, a real crime. And now the entire world already knew about it. Facebook removes the post. Back online, the shocking image continued spreading. Shares, comments, screenshots. People reposted it faster than moderators could react. Soon, Facebook staff flagged the post, removed it, but it was too late. Thousands had already seen it, saved it, shared it. The internet never forgets, and this case proved that in the worst way possible. Media gets the story. Local reporters caught wind of the police activity. Then someone mentioned Facebook. That detail changed everything. This wasn't just a crime, it was also a digital age crime. Within hours, headlines exploded. TV crews rushed to the scene. Cameras pointed at the apartment building. Reporters spoke into microphones. Authorities are investigating a shocking case involving a social media post. News spread nationwide, then worldwide. People everywhere asked the same question. Why would someone post something like that online? A digital crime scene. Investigators realized quickly this case wasn't just about what happened inside the apartment. It was also about what happened online. Social media became evidence. Posts, messages, history, everything. Every click mattered, because this wasn't just a physical crime, it was a digital one too. And the trail he left online would soon become key evidence in court.
By evening, the apartment was sealed off with yellow police tape. Red and blue lights flashed across the walls. Neighbors whispered in the hallway. Nobody could believe what had happened inside that quiet apartment just hours earlier. But investigators already knew one thing. This wasn't just a crime scene, it was also a digital crime scene. And the biggest piece of evidence was sitting online. The phone that told the story. Inside the apartment, detectives moved carefully. Photographs were taken, evidence collected, every detail recorded. One officer carefully picked up Derek's phone, still unlocked, still logged in to Facebook. That device would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the entire case. Because what Derek posted wasn't just shocking, it was a confession. Interrogation begins. Later that night, Derek Medina sat inside an interrogation room at a police station in Miami. Bright white lights, cold metal table, camera recording every movement. Across from him sat two detectives, serious faces, calm voices. One detective leaned forward. "Derek, we need you to tell us exactly what happened."
Derek rubbed his hands together, looked down, then spoke. "We were arguing again, same stuff as always." The second detective asked quietly, "What started the argument?" Derek shrugged slightly. "She didn't respect me. She kept talking back." The room fell silent. One detective exchanged a glance with the other. They had heard statements like this before, but this case was different because of what came after. His explanation. Derek claimed the argument got out of control, that Jennifer became aggressive, that he felt threatened. He leaned back in his chair and said, "I wasn't planning anything. It just happened." Detectives listened carefully, taking notes, watching his body language. One of them asked quietly, "Why did you post it on Facebook?" That question hung in the air, heavy, uncomfortable. Derek paused before answering. "I wanted people to know the truth before anyone twisted the story." That answer shocked investigators, because instead of panic, he chose publicity. Instead of calling for help, he made a post. Neighbors speak up. Meanwhile, detectives returned to the apartment building, knocking on doors, interviewing residents. One neighbor opened the door slowly, still shaken. "Yeah, I heard yelling," she told officers. "They argued a lot, but today was louder." Another resident added, "I heard loud sounds, then silence, real quiet." Those statements helped detectives build the timeline, every sound, every moment, every movement, step by step. The internet keeps talking. Even though the Facebook post was removed, screenshots were everywhere, shared on forums, posted on blogs, discussed in comment sections. People argued online. Was he insane? Was it planned? Was it rage? News channels replayed the story again and again. The phrase "Facebook killer" started appearing in headlines, and just like that, a private tragedy became a public spectacle. Digging into his past. Investigators didn't stop with the Facebook post. They dug deeper into Derek's life, his online history, his messages, his posts. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Derek had been posting relationship advice for months, quotes about discipline, posts about respect, messages about controlling behavior in marriage. Some of them sounded strict, almost aggressive. One post read, "Respect is earned, but discipline must be maintained." Detectives flagged that message because now it sounded less like advice and more like a warning sign. The e-book discovery. During the investigation, officers discovered something unexpected. Derek had written an e-book about relationships. Yes, an actual guide. He had titled it, "How I Saved Someone's Life and Marriage." Inside, he described rules for relationships, strict ones, about obedience, about respect, about control. When prosecutors later reviewed the book, they realized something chilling. The mindset inside that book matched the behavior seen in his home life, the daughter's presence. One of the most heartbreaking details in the case came from inside the apartment. Jennifer's young daughter had been present in the home during the incident. She was in another room, away from the argument. Investigators took extra care handling this part of the case because protecting the child, emotionally and legally, became a priority. Officers spoke gently, carefully, making sure she felt safe. That detail made the case even more tragic because innocent lives were caught in the middle of adult conflict, building the case. As days passed, prosecutors began to assemble evidence, piece by piece. Phone records, Facebook posts, witness statements, photos. Everything was documented, nothing ignored. One investigator said quietly during a team meeting, "We don't just have a confession, we have digital proof." Another nodded, and the whole world already saw part of it. That made this case different from older crimes, because social media didn't just record the aftermath, it broadcast it. Courtroom preparations begin. Soon the case moved toward court. Legal teams prepared arguments, prosecutors focused on evidence, defense lawyers studied every detail. Outside the courthouse in Miami, reporters gathered daily, microphones ready, cameras rolling. People wanted answers, not just about the crime, but about something bigger. How social media changed crime forever. Public reaction grows. Across the country, families talked about the case at dinner tables. Parents warned their kids about online behavior. News anchors debated responsibility. Experts discussed social media safety. Because this wasn't just about violence, it was about how fast information spreads, how quickly something shocking can reach millions, and how one click can make history. The question everyone asked. As the case moved forward, one question echoed everywhere. Was it rage or was it control? Because the answer would decide everything: charges, punishment, justice. And that answer would soon be argued in a courtroom packed with reporters, lawyers, and witnesses, all watching closely, all waiting.
By 2017, years after the shocking Facebook post, the courtroom in Miami was packed. Reporters filled the benches, notebooks open, cameras waiting outside. Everyone wanted to witness the trial of the man the media had already labeled the Facebook killer. But inside the courtroom, it wasn't about headlines. It was about evidence, truth, and justice. Derek walks into court. When Derek Medina entered the courtroom, all eyes turned toward him. He looked older than before, more tired, less confident than the man who once posted motivational messages online. But he didn't show much emotion, no tears, no panic, just a steady walk to his seat. The judge called the session to order. Silence fell across the room. The trial had officially begun. The prosecutor's opening statement. The lead prosecutor stood up slowly, calm, focused, voice steady. He looked toward the jury and began speaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about control, anger, and a decision that changed lives forever." He paused, letting the words sink in. The defendant didn't act in fear, he acted in rage. The prosecutor explained the timeline step by step, the argument, the actions that followed, and finally, the shocking Facebook post. He turned toward the jury again. Not only did he commit a violent act, he told the world about it himself. That statement made several jurors shift in their seats, because they knew this case wasn't ordinary. The Facebook evidence appears. Then came one of the most powerful moments in the trial. A large screen inside the courtroom lit up. Displayed on it was the Facebook post made by Derek Medina, the same one that shocked the world. The prosecutor spoke clearly. This post was made minutes after the incident. Jurors stared at the screen. Some looked uncomfortable. Others leaned forward, reading every word carefully. The prosecutor continued. Instead of calling emergency services, the defendant chose to post online. That detail became one of the strongest arguments in the case, because it showed decision-making, not panic, not confusion, choice. The defense strikes back. Then it was the defense lawyer's turn. He stood slowly, adjusted his tie, looked at the jury, voice calm but firm. "My client acted in self-defense." That statement changed the tone instantly. Some jurors exchanged glances. The defense claimed that Jennifer Alfonso had threatened Derek during the argument, that he feared for his safety, that his actions were driven by fear, not anger. The lawyer spoke carefully. This was not planned. This was not revenge. This was survival. That argument created doubt, and doubt is exactly what the defense needed. Witness testimonies begin. One by one, witnesses stepped into the courtroom. Neighbors spoke first. A woman from the same apartment building took the stand. She looked nervous, hands shaking slightly. The prosecutor asked, "Did you hear anything on the day of the incident?" She nodded. "Yes, yelling, loud yelling." He continued, "Was that unusual?" She paused, then answered, "No, they argued before, but this time felt louder." That testimony supported the claim that conflict inside the apartment wasn't new. It had history. Digital experts take the stand. Next came digital forensic experts. These were the specialists who examined Derek's device and social media activity. One expert adjusted his glasses before speaking. "We analyzed the defendant's device and Facebook account." The prosecutor asked, "What did you find?" The expert replied, "The Facebook post was made shortly after the incident, from his personal device." He explained how timestamps confirmed the timeline, every second recorded, every action logged. Technology didn't forget, and that digital trail became undeniable proof. The e-book evidence.
Then prosecutors introduced another shocking detail, the e-book written by Derek. Printed copies were handed to the jury, pages filled with strict relationship rules, control-based thinking, statements about discipline and obedience. The prosecutor spoke firmly. This document reveals the defendant's mindset. Defense lawyers objected. Speculation, the defense said, but the judge allowed portions of the material as evidence. Jurors flipped through the pages, reading silently, thinking deeply, because now this wasn't just about one moment, it was about pattern, behavior, mindset. Emotional testimony. One of the hardest moments came when family members spoke. Jennifer Alfonso's relatives took the stand. Their voices shook, their words heavy with emotion. One relative said quietly, she deserved peace, not fear. Silence filled the courtroom. Even reporters stopped writing for a moment. That testimony reminded everyone, behind the headlines, behind the social media storm, there was a real person, a real life lost. Derek takes the stand. Then came the moment everyone waited for. Derek Medina himself stepped into the witness box. All eyes locked on him. The defense lawyer asked, "Did you plan this?" Derek shook his head. "No." "Were you afraid?" He nodded slowly. "Yes." He explained his version of events, claimed he feared harm, claimed he reacted without thinking. But when the prosecutor began cross-examination, things got intense. Cross-examination pressure. The prosecutor stepped forward, voice sharper now, more aggressive. "If you were afraid, why didn't you call emergency services?" Derek hesitated. Silence stretched across the courtroom. Then he answered, I didn't think straight." The prosecutor leaned closer. "But you thought clearly enough to post on Facebook?" That question hit hard. The courtroom felt tense, heavy. Derek struggled to respond. Words came slower now, because that contradiction was difficult to explain. The jury watches closely. Jurors listened to every word, every pause, every hesitation. They studied body language, tone, confidence, because their job wasn't easy. They had to decide, was this self-defense or was this rage? That decision would determine the outcome, and everyone in the room knew it. Closing arguments approach. After weeks of testimony, evidence, and arguments, the trial neared its final stage, closing arguments, the moment when both sides would deliver their final messages to the jury. Prosecutors prepared their strongest points. Defense lawyers refined their strategy. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered again, waiting, watching, ready to announce the verdict once it came. Because soon, the jury would decide Derek Medina's fate, and the world would hear the final answer.
The courtroom felt heavier than ever. Weeks of testimony, days of arguments, hours of evidence. Now, everything came down to one moment. The jury's decision. Inside the courthouse in Miami, silence hung thick in the air. Reporters filled every seat. Family members sat quietly, hands clasped. Even the smallest sound, a chair shifting, a cough, felt loud. Because everyone knew this was the day justice would be decided. The jury leaves to deliberate. The judge looked toward the jury, voice calm, formal. "Members of the jury, you may now retire to deliberate." The jurors stood, walked slowly out of the courtroom, door closed behind them. And just like that, the waiting began. Minutes passed, then hours. Nobody spoke much. Derek Medina sat still at the defense table, eyes forward, expression blank. Jennifer Alfonso's family sat together, quiet, holding on to each other. Outside, news reporters waited with cameras ready, because once the verdict came, it would spread across the country in seconds. The long wait. Deliberations lasted several hours. Inside the jury room, members reviewed evidence, the Facebook post, witness statements, phone records, every detail, every timeline. They debated the biggest question in the case. Was it self-defense or anger? One juror reportedly focused on the timeline. Another studied the digital evidence. Others discussed Derek's testimony. The pressure was intense, because their decision would determine a man's future forever. The jury returns. Late in the day, movement stirred in the hallway.
Court officers signaled quietly. The jury was ready. Inside the courtroom, everyone stood. The jurors walked back to their seats. Serious faces, no smiles, no emotion. The judge asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The room fell completely silent. You could feel the tension, like a storm about to break. The verdict is read. The clerk unfolded a piece of paper, hands steady, voice clear. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Those words echoed through the courtroom, heavy, final, unavoidable. Jennifer Alfonso's family broke into quiet tears. Some covered their faces, others holding each other tightly. Years of waiting, now ending in one sentence. Across the room, Derek Medina showed little reaction, just a slow blink, a deep breath. But the reality had landed, hard, because there was no turning back now. The sentence. Days later, the courtroom gathered again for sentencing. This time, the mood felt different, more final, more serious. The judge reviewed the case carefully, every fact, every detail, every consequence. Then came the final words. The defendant is sentenced to life in prison. No applause, no celebration, just silence. Because even justice doesn't erase tragedy. Jennifer Alfonso's life was gone, and Derek Medina's future was sealed behind prison walls, forever. Public reaction across the country. Once the sentence was announced, news spread fast. Television channels reported breaking updates. Online platforms flooded with reactions. People discussed the case everywhere: schools, homes, workplaces. Social media users talked about the dangers of sharing too much online, because this case wasn't just about violence, it was about the power of the internet. How one post could shock the entire world. The legacy of the case. The story of the Facebook killer became one of the earliest major crimes tied directly to social media posting. Law enforcement agencies began studying the role of digital evidence more closely. Courts relied more heavily on online records. Investigators trained to track social media activity. Because this case showed something important. Online actions are permanent, and sometimes they become evidence. What happened to Derek Medina? After sentencing, Derek Medina was transferred into the prison system. No cameras, no headlines, no Facebook posts. Just routine prison life. Structured days, locked doors, limited contact with the outside world. The man who once shared his life online now lived mostly out of public sight. His name remained tied to one of the most shocking social media-related crimes in modern history. Remembering Jennifer Alfonso. While headlines focused on the crime, family and friends focused on memory. Remembering Jennifer Alfonso not as a victim, but as a person. Someone who laughed, talked, dreamed. Someone whose life mattered. Because behind every crime story, there's always a human story. And that story deserves to be remembered. The lesson the world learned. This case left behind a chilling lesson, not just about crime, but about anger, control, and the power of technology. One decision, one moment of rage, one post. That's all it took to change everything forever. And the world watched it happen in real time through a screen on Facebook.